a plant that grows on 6 music continents, has 5 times more magnesium than spinach, more than any supplement capsule, and more than any commercially available fortified cereal. Each plant yields 70,000 seeds, which live for 40 years in the soil. It was discovered preserved inside the stomachs of ancient bog creatures. Music. However, it was considered a weed in the West. Selling magnesium supplements brings in about $7 billion a year. In the meantime, this plant grows in cracks in the pavement. After seeing this video, you will understand why a plant that is more nutrient-dense than anything found in your grocery store wound up on agriculturists' most sought-after list, and how to avoid ever having to pay for magnesium again. Enter any traditional northern Indian kitchen in the winter. Observe the families cooking their breakfast. Dark green leaves with a dusty white coating are cooked into parathas, which are flatbreads, and curries. This isn't spinach. This isn't kale. I'm batha. Additionally, more than 300 million South Asians consume it on a weekly basis. It is known as bethu in Nepal's Himalayan foothills. There, farmers view it as vital winter sustenance. The locals in Turkey refer to it as oxyar ken. For countless centuries, they have collected it from untamed areas. Traditional cooks in rural Mexico refer to it as qualit. They mix it into soups and roll it into tamales. This is the first indication that anything went wrong. You are familiar with collard greens, spinach, kale, arugula, and Swiss chard. Every grocery store in the West carries these veggies. However, this plant does not exist in Western consciousness, despite being ingested by more people than all those greens put together. None of its names are familiar to the majority of Americans. Fragmentation is where the issue starts. The Indians refer to it as bawa. The Nepalese refer to it as bethu. The Turks refer to it as a sirkin. It's referred to as quiet by Mexicans. It was originally referred to as fat hen by British farmers. Chenopodium album is the name given by American botanists. One plant has dozens of names. Western languages lack a cohesive identity. A plant does not consistently appear in recipes, databases, or research funding requests when it lacks a consistent name. There was no deliberate fragmentation. However, erasure was the outcome. This is similar to cilantro. Coriander is the same plant. Seeds and leaves have different names. However, these names were unified by Western cuisine culture. Everyone is familiar with cilantro. Every grocery shop has it. That unification was never given to this old plant. In every individual interaction, it stayed alien, never understood, never integrated, and never familiar. Now think about the formal title. Hundreds of millions of people are fed by this plant. It was cultivated for thousands of years by ancient societies. It is one of the world's top 5 most common agricultural weeds. Food in one nation is classified as toxic in another. American farmers use herbicides on the same leaves that Indian grandmothers cook in family meals. When did it become illegal to grow without permission? An whole different narrative is presented in the ancient record. We must go back in time to comprehend how this occurred. Not eons, not millennia, not decades. When Danish laborers removed peat from a bog close to the village of Toland in 1950, they made a discovery that would forever alter archaeology. When they first phoned the police, they thought they had uncovered a recent murder victim because the human body they had recovered was so well preserved. The body belongs to a man who passed away more than 2,400 years ago. He was dubbed Toland Man by scientists. You can still see the stubble on his chin, his wrinkled brow, and his closed eyes because his face was so intact. He appeared to be dozing off. However, his stomach piqued the interest of scientists. The most thorough examination of Toland Man's final supper was carried out in 2021 by specialists from the Danish National Museum. To determine exactly what he consumed in the final hours of his life, they employed sophisticated microscopy and lipid analysis. The scientific journal Antiquity was filled with the findings. The highest quantities of any grain or seed were found in barley, pale persicaria, flax seeds, wild buckwheat, and one plant. His tummy was full by the plant we are talking about today. To him, it wasn't a marijuana. It was food. Purposefully grown and collected food. The Tolan man was not by himself. Growlball man, another bog body found nearby, displayed the same feeding pattern, the same plants, the same deliberate cultivation, and the same proof of a food chain we had forgotten existed. The leaves and seeds of this plant were gathered and eaten more than 3,000 years ago, according to the analysis of stomach contents from Iron Age human remains preserved in northern European peat bogs. It wasn't foraging. This was farming. However, the significance of this plant was not only recognized by humans in Europe, and whole different civilization independently made the same discovery 5,000 miles to the west. About 5,000 years ago, a unique event occurred in the eastern North American river valleys. Goosefoot family members were purposefully planted and cultivated by indigenous peoples. They chose bigger seeds. They created methods for storage. They established networks for trading. Music. In the river corridor that runs from present-day Missouri to Ohio, at least 5 domesticated seed-bearing plants had developed into a cohesive agricultural complex by 3,800 years ago. The relatives of this plant were essential to that system. This is known as the Eastern Agricultural Complex by archaeologists. It is over 2,000 years older than the introduction of maize from Mexico. Native American civilizations thrived for millennia on crops that we now refer to as weeds. Archaeologists discovered first-hand proof of this abandoned cultivation at Alabama's Russell Cave. The Chenopodium family seeds were methodically grown and purposefully stored. This was a significant food supply. This crop was a mainstay. 3 distinct instances of domestication: the woodlands of eastern North America, the Andes Mountains of South America, and the central Mexican highlands. Music. After examining this plant, 3 separate civilizations came to the same conclusion. This is worthwhile. It is worthwhile to cultivate this. Our people are fed by this, and this relationship may be the most illuminating of all. You are aware of the ancient Andean superfood known as quinoa, which is currently available in health music food stores for $8 per pound. The grain added to smoothie bowls by Instagram influencers. The seed that brings in hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Chenopodium quinoa is quinoa. Chenopodium album is the plant that we are talking about. They belong to the same genus and have comparable nutritional profiles, making them close relatives. Music. They were directly compared in recent research that was published in the Journal of Food Composition and Analysis. Researchers were astounded by the findings. When compared to quinoa, Chenopodium album showed better nutrautical and amino acid profiles. The superfood is not as effective as the cannabis. Nearly no one in the Western world has ever heard of the free plant, which outperforms the pricey one. Lamb squares is the name of the plant. Chenopodium album is the most popular name for it in the United States. You have never heard of the most nutrient-dense plant, music. Allow me to demonstrate how music's creation has been verified by contemporary science. For just 43 calories, a 100 gram portion of raw lamb quarter leaves provides 96% of your daily vitamin C needs, 73% of your vitamin A needs, 37% of your riboflavin, 37% of your manganese, and 31% of your calcium. Nutritionists love spinach, so contrast this with that. There are roughly 2 times more vitamin B1, 2 times more vitamin B2, 3 times more vitamin C, and 3 times more calcium in lamb's quarters. In contrast, kale is the vegetable that gave rise to 1,000 wellness brands. About 2.5 times as much vitamin A is found in lamb quarters as in kale. It has higher levels of fiber, protein, and the majority of important minerals. The mineral content, however, is the true gem. The United States Botanic Garden published a study that contrasted popular grocery store veggies with edible wild species. They compared lamb quarters to cabbage, spinach, and lettuce. The findings need to be taken seriously. Compared to those commercial greens, lamb's quarters provide 3 times as much calcium and more than twice as much potassium. This is the number that makes all the difference. Magnesium levels are 5 times higher than those of spinach, 5 times higher than those of lettuce, and 5 times higher than those of cabbage. No costly powder, no pill, and no supplement. Just leaves that grow in disturbed soil on 6 continents, in sidewalk cracks, and in flower beds. The protein content has a narrative of its own. The protein content of fresh lamb's quarters leaves is higher than that of most leafy greens, at 4.3% per 100 grams. However, when the seeds are dried, the numbers become astounding. The protein content of lamb squatter seeds ranged from 16.6 to 19.7%, according to research published in Food Science and Nutrition, better than most grains, comparable to many legumes. The mineral content is very desirable because of this. High concentrations of oxalic acid are found in several leafy greens. Because oxalates bind to minerals like calcium and magnesium, your body is unable to absorb as much music. For this, spinach is infamous. On paper, it appears nutrient-dense, but oxalates rob it of much of that. Something music different was discovered during research on Chenopodium species. Lamb squatters showed lower interference ratios than beet or spinach due to their high magnesium content, and the ratio of oxalic acid to calcium plus magnesium increased bioavailability. Your cells actually absorb more of what you eat. This distinction is something that the supplement industry does not want you to know. They offer separated magnesium compounds for sale: magnesium glycinate, magnesium oxide, and magnesium citrate. Each absorbs at a different rate. When bottles run out, each needs to be purchased again, and a shape of a plant. Coactors, enzymes, fiber, and complementary nutrients that have evolved to cooperate are all included with magnesium. Food is recognized by your body. Pills are not usually recognized by it. However, this plant's erasure from Western consciousness cannot be explained solely by nutrition. The true solution is found in something even more amazing, something that puts the existing food production economy in jeopardy. Each plant of lamb's quarters yields an average of 72,000 seeds. Over 100,000 are produced by certain specimens. Researchers have shown that plants can produce up to 500,000 seeds under the right circumstances. 50 million seeds can be released per hectare from a single, well-established patch. Let me put those numbers into physical form because they are hard to understand. This summer, planting 1 lamb quarters in your backyard will yield enough seeds to plant music over the entire neighborhood. Additionally, there is nothing you need to do. The plant spreads its own seeds. Replanting, collecting, storage, and intervention are not necessary. However, this is what turns abundance into permanence. Those seeds do not perish. Lamb's quarter seeds can survive in soil for 12 to 78 years, according to studies on seed longevity. After 20 years of burial, 32% of the plants germinated, according to one research. After 40 years, another discovered viable seeds. Consider the implications of this. If your great-grandmother had only ever planted lamb's quarters once, you may still be harvesting today. Additionally, the plant can adapt to nearly any situation. Outstanding germination, under a variety of environmental circumstances, paired with outstanding resistance to abiotic stress, was reported in research published in PL1. At ideal temperatures, 94% of the seeds germinated. However, despite high salinity, poor soil quality, and dehydration, the plant successfully germinated. Light, medium, heavy, acidic, alkaline, sandy, and clay soils are all suitable for its growth. Resilience ranges from sea level to high mountain valleys, from Scandinavia to South Africa, and from USDA hardiness zone 3 to zone 10. A plant that establishes itself and returns eternally, that doesn't require infrastructure, that creates permanent food music systems, and isn't delicate seedlings that need continual care or hybrid types that require certain fertilizers. Now think about the implications for current industries. Purchase a seed once, plant it once, and get the benefits indefinitely. When a crop is self-sustaining, what happens to seed business earnings? Music. What happens if consumers never have to make another purchase? Every year, the worldwide seed market brings in more than $60 billion. Wheat, corn, soybeans, cotton, and music. Every planting season, new seeds must be purchased for these crops. A large number of contemporary types are hybrids that are not true breeders. A few have patents. The business model relies solely on repetition. This model is broken by lamb's quarters. Music declines to take part in yearly exchanges. It is uncontrollable. It is unable to produce regular income. This plant has no value from an industry standpoint. Even worse than worthless. It's a contest. The similar issue affects the supplement business. In 2023, the market for magnesium supplements was valued at $3.5 billion worldwide. By 2032, growth to about $7 billion is anticipated. One thing is necessary for this growth: ongoing magnesium shortage. According to government figures, almost 90% of adult Americans do not consume the necessary amount of magnesium. Up to half of the population may be clinically inadequate, according to certain research. Demand is generated by this shortfall. Markets are created by demand. Products are necessary for markets. Every link in this chain is at risk from lamb's quarters. A self-seeding plant that grows without cultivation and yields 5 times more magnesium than spinach. After initial establishment, there are no additional fees. This isn't a product. This is a solution. And businesses don't like solutions. The structure is seen in the research funding trends. Look through the medical literature database, PubMed. Look up studies on fish oil. There are more than 15,000 results. Look for many more studies on magnesium supplements. Now, look for nutritional research on Chenopodium album. Only a few hundred studies were supported by Western organizations, and the majority were carried out in Pakistan, India, or Nepal. This plant is frequently described by the same name in scientific publications. Disregarded. Music. The nutritional features of the underappreciated species Chenopodium album. In the literature, that word keeps coming up. Conspiracy is not the same as neglect. There were no secret meetings when CEOs made the decision to put an end to lamb squatters. Memoranda calling for its erasure did not circulate. It was a simpler mechanism. Economic systems observe what is advantageous to them. Funding is followed by research. Patents are followed by funding. Control is necessary for patents. The quarters of lambs are uncontrollable. It feeds itself. It spreads. It becomes naturalized. It gets crazy. It becomes unrestricted. It is impossible to sell what cannot be owned. It is impossible to market something that cannot be sold. Nothing that can't be sold makes it into people's minds. The eraser was finished by the weed classification. Lamb quarters are one of the more competitive weeds in row crop cultivation, according to agricultural extension organizations. Research shows that a single lambter plant per 1.5 feet of row reduces maize output by 13%, 25% reduction in soybean yield. This poses a concern from the standpoint of industrial monoculture. Music. Diversity is ineffective. Chaos is the result of spontaneous growth. Lamb's quarters are hard for consistent commodity production due to the same characteristics that make them valued as food. Manufacturers of herbicides require adversaries. Lamb's quarters were targeted. Chemicals worth billions of dollars were used to destroy a plant that provides food for humans. With white clover, the same pattern emerged. Because clover naturally fertilizes soil, It was included in American lawn seed mixes for 8 decades. Herbicide manufacturers then required markets during times of peace. Clover was eliminated from seed mixtures. To kill what they had previously marketed as helpful, they sold poison. Nobody used active conspiracy to put an end to lamb squatterers. The system just forgot, or, more accurately, it just recalled what could be sold. However, the plant is unconcerned with making money. Market capitalization, shareholder value, and quarterly earnings are all irrelevant to it. It is concerned with procreation. It is concerned with survival. It is concerned with spreading wherever sunshine and dirt allow. And it has been waiting in soil seed banks on 6 music continents, in disturbed ground close to building sites, in backyard gardens where no herbicide has been sprayed, in city sidewalk cracks, in empty lots, and in the spaces between what we grow and what we overlook. Ignoring this plant has considerably more detrimental effects on health than just diet. One of the most common mineral deficits in the developed world today is magnesium insufficiency. Magnesium is used by your body in more than 300 enzymatic activities: energy production, blood pressure control, blood sugar regulation, muscle function, neuron transmission, and protein synthesis. Everything suffers when magnesium levels are low, starting with cramping in the muscles, followed by weariness that is not alleviated by sleep or music, anxiety that has no apparent cause, irregular heartbeat, migraines, and trouble falling asleep. Because the symptoms are so prevalent, most individuals believe they are just a normal aspect of contemporary living. Seldom do medical professionals check for magnesium insufficiency. Serum magnesium is measured by standard blood tests, although blood contains just 1% of the magnesium in your body. The remaining 99% is concealed in soft tissues and bones. Blood testing may reveal normal levels, yet you may be seriously lacking. In the meantime, soil magnesium has been depleted by contemporary agriculture. Trace minerals are not replaced by industrial farming. Crops music are less nutritious, yet grow more quickly. Studies comparing veggies from music 1950 to the present reveal sharp drops in minerals. There was more magnesium in the spinach your grandma ate than in the spinach you currently purchase. A perfect storm is produced as a result. Music. Food is depleted when soil is depleted. Depleted bodies result from depleted nourishment. Supplement need is caused by depleted bodies. Profits are generated by supplements. More study on supplements is funded by music earnings. The loop perpetuates itself. Because lamb's quarters grows where other plants struggle, it disrupts this cycle. It grows well on marginal soil. It extracts minerals from depths that vegetables with shallow roots are unable to get. Its deep taproot allows it to absorb nutrients that modern crops completely miss. What remains in the soil is concentrated by the plant. This is especially more beneficial in urban settings. City soils are frequently compacted, disturbed, and appear to be unfriendly to farming. However, where other music plants see barriers, lamb's quarters sees opportunities. It settles on building sites. It comes from parking lots with gravel. It pushes through gaps where biological matter builds up. America's urban foragers have started to rediscover this abundance. Every season, hundreds of pounds of lamb's quarters are harvested by community gardens in Music, Detroit that promote wild edibles. Mexican and Central American immigrant groups in Los Angeles are quick to identify quailite and question why their American counterparts don't. Music identification of lamb squatters is now a staple instruction in foraging trips in New York City. All around Europe, the pattern music is repeated. Lamb squatterers are still made as kimosa biala by traditional Polish cooks. Older generations in Germany refer to it as Weiser Gansifus. Rural villages in Music, Greece retain centuries-old expertise of how to prepare vetita. There is knowledge. It just lost contact with the general public. All that is needed for reconnection is attentiveness. Lamb's quarters have been used as famine food during humanity's darkest moments, according to history. Music. Families in occupied Europe during World War II subsisted on uncultivated plants. Lamb's quarters emerged from disturbed earth to feed the hungry when supply lines broke and music farms lay deserted. During the 1944-1945 hunger winter, survivors in the Netherlands consumed whatever grew wild. This plant flourished everywhere. Music. During America's Great Depression, the similar pattern emerged. Families in rural areas who retained traditional wisdom foraged what others disregarded: music. They used free, non-purchased greens to extend their limited resources. The plant made no requests, just recognition, no cash, no labor, no infrastructure. Lamb quarters were consumed in China throughout numerous famines that date back thousands of years, according to historical documents. Ancient agricultural literature mentioned the plant as a dependable backup in the event that the rice harvest is unsuccessful. When all else vanished, peasant farmers understood that this green would emerge. There is a lesson in this history that we have forgotten. Complexity is not the source of resilience. It originates from simplicity, from self-sufficient plants, from food systems that continue to function music when all else fails. Our forefathers were aware of this. Because civilization occasionally collapses, they continue to maintain relationships with wild plants. Convenience has been exchanged for that resilience, for factory-made supplements, for plastic-wrapped veggies transported from far-off continents, and for the delusion that supermarkets will always be stocked music. The pandemic exposed the frailty of these presumptions. In a matter of days, empty shelves appeared. Under pressure, supply chains gave way. Reclaiming this abundance is easy with the right knowledge. No specialized knowledge is needed for identification. On young leaves, look for the characteristic mealy white coating that appears as though someone has sprinkled flour on the surface. Mature plants have triangular or diamond-shaped leaves that are about 3 to 7 centimeters long. There are uneven teeth on the edges. The upper leaves seem unweightable and waxy. It is easy to remove the dusty coating. The leaves beneath it resemble any cooking green, with a dark green top and occasionally a purplish underside. As the plant ages, dense clusters of tiny green flowers emerge on spikes. There are similar plants. Lamb's quarters are most frequently mistaken for the Orish species. Here's the crucial information, though. They can also be eaten. There is no risk from the confusion. Your greens may turn out to be a little saltier. You won't become poisoned. Almost no cultivation is required. In most gardens, the plant grows on its own. Quit taking it out. That's the whole secret of cultivation. Spread seeds on disturbed soil in the spring, following the last frost, if you want to intentionally create a patch. Once established, water sporadically and take a step back. Nothing more is needed by the plant. When plants are 6 to 8 inches tall, harvest the young leaves. They are most sensitive at this time. Music. By taking the top growth, you can harvest continuously during the growing season. In a matter of days, new leaves emerge. You can eat the young shoots raw. Put them in salads. It has a subtle, slightly mineral taste with a hint of spinach. Ideally, the leaves are cooked. They should be handled just like spinach. Add to soups, blend into smoothies, fold into omelets, and sauté with garlic. When cooked, the buds and young flowers can also be consumed. They give it a slightly different flavor and texture. Wait until the seed heads become dry and dark in late summer or early fall before harvesting them. Place the clusters in a container after stripping them. Pour the seeds between 2 containers in a breeze to gently winnow. The chaff is blown away. Before eating, gently toast the clean seeds. Grind them into flour or boil them to make porridge. One preparation-related point. Lamb squatters contain oxalates, just like spinach and many other leafy greens. This is not a problem for the majority of people. However, short blanching lowers oxalate levels if you have kidney stones or frequently consume large amounts. Cover the leaves with boiling water. After 2 minutes of sitting, drain. The water you discard dissolves the oxalates. Dried seeds should be kept in airtight containers. They last for many years. This serves as insurance against unpredictable futures. Seeds that only need dry storage and patience. No electricity, no supply networks, no operational stores. Think about the true meaning of food security. In an emergency, grocery store shelves can empty in a matter of hours. Fuel, electricity, and political stability are essential components of supply chains that span international borders. Before it reaches your plate, the typical meal travels more than 1,500 miles. Each link in that chain is a possible point of failure. Imagine a different model now. Food that doesn't require replanting. Nutrition that doesn't cost money. Seeds that spend decades patiently underground. Harvest that grows back in a matter of days after being cut. This isn't a fantasy. Lamb squatters are what this is. Before we forgot, our ancestors knew this. This information is even more critical in light of the climate crisis. In agricultural areas, droughts are getting worse. Conventional crops are being destroyed by heat waves. The water table is declining. The cost of irrigation is rising. There are flaws in the industrial food system that took the place of traditional wisdom. These conditions are ideal for lamb quarters. Drought resilience, heat tolerance, and the capacity to flourish in poor soil. For the world we are building, this plant evolved. It was ready for circumstances that our pampered crops cannot withstand. Every garden that keeps up a plot of lamb quarters is protected from unpredictable harvests. Growing lamb quarters is not the fundamental question. It develops on its own. The concern is whether you'll be able to identify it when it shows up, whether you'll see food or a weed. A Danish guy consumed this plant as his last supper 3,000 years ago. Pete's preservation of his body demonstrates his values. Native American farmers grew its cousins as staple foods 5,000 years ago. We can learn about their knowledge via their seeds that have been preserved in cave deposits. This information was never forgotten. Every winter, Indian grandmothers continue to prepare batha. Bathu is still collected by Himalayan locals from untamed hillsides. Mexican chefs continue to use qualit into their traditional recipes. With the exception of areas where industrial agriculture and supplement marketing attained complete control, the wisdom persisted everywhere. You won't learn about this plant from the supplement industry. Pointing you in the direction of free nutrition is not profitable. Music. It will not be promoted by the seed business. When one planting lasts forever, you are unable to offer annual products. It won't be celebrated by the agricultural establishment. Herbicides cannot be sprayed on food crops. However, market reports are not read by the seeds. They don't monitor stock prices. Board meetings are not attended by them. For decades, they have been sitting in the soil, waiting for light, for disturbance, for someone to stop poisoning them and begin harvesting them. For 40 years, the seeds had been waiting in the ground. When they do decide to grow, the question is whether you will be prepared.